These are first ones honoring for the mountain spirits, honoring for the fish and the lizards, water creatures that come in, and honoring for the birds and the singing birds, and honoring for the bear. All these spirits make those honorings for those first ones that were here before all of us. As these are the real indigenous ones to these lands, these mountains, and these fish, these animals, these reptiles, these lizards, these birds, this bear, who know is the one who was put here to keep order here for all of us. So this proclamation is the original draft, but there is a proclamation that is being read right about now. A proclamation that is read by the City Council, the City of Steamboat Springs, recognizing Indigenous Peoples for Steamboat Springs. So this is a proclamation of Indigenous Peoples for Yampa Valley. We are people living in Yampa Valley, and we make this proclamation to recognize the Indigenous Peoples of the Yampa Valley for their contribution to the land, water, plants, animals, and people along the beautiful Yampa River and its surrounding lands. Whereas the first peoples known to live here, known through their direct descendants as Nooch, pronounced Nooch and meaning the people, are Colorado's oldest documented inhabitants and are known today to be part of the Ute Nation, and regionally as Yamparika and Yampatika, people who were established as an American Indian tribe at the White River Agency, and many of whose descendants live on the Ute Reservation in Duschesne, Utah. Whereas the Utes' creation story tells the Ute people that in the beginning of time, the Creator placed the Utes in the Rocky Mountains, their ancestral home. Ute oral tradition holds that they are the only American Indian tribe without a migration story, and understand themselves to have been here for at least 10,000 years. Whereas ancient Native American societies lived and left their mark in the form of stone tools and ceramics throughout the region, burial sites, rock art, sacred and practical landmarks over thousands of years, they maintained a pinnacle of environmental stewardship that has not been seen since this was their home. Whereas historical tribes are represented by historical figures of the Ute Nation, known as Chief Colorado, born Comanche, and Chief Jack Nikagat, known to be an Apache orphan. This also includes the close family ties of Chief Ore and his wife Tripita to Apache bands. Whereas a part of the Arapaho Nation is known to have arrived in the Yampa Valley around Steamboat Springs and vied with the Ute Nation community of Chief Yaumit, and ultimately left the area for other parts of Colorado. Whereas it is recognized that until the Ute Nation community was driven out of the area after the Battle of Milk Creek in 1879, their stewardship cared for a Yampa Valley teeming with herds of American bison, Colorado elk, gray wolf packs, which subsequently became extinct in the 20th century. Whereas the evident lived past of the indigenous peoples of the Yampa Valley is recognized as a valued and rich source of heritage, education, reflection, and celebration for all guests and members of the Steamboat Springs community. We recognize the need to increase our efforts to include this in civic life and events. Whereas it is recognized and appreciated that many Native Americans, Chicanos, and indigenous peoples of Mexico, Canada, and other parts of the Americas have lived, worked, and contributed to the history and contemporary life of the communities of the Yampa Valley. Whereas it is recognized and appreciated that the continued resilience of indigenous peoples in Steamboat Springs is due to the efforts of Native American individuals who share, promote, and maintain traditions within our community. Whereas it is recognized that we, the people of Yampa Valley, will support contemporary Native American initiatives and activities to promote inclusion, respectful representation, education, and the addressing of social issues affecting indigenous peoples will be at the forefront of our concern as a community. Drafted and presented by myself, Dr. Maestas, November 17, 2020. Noise!